Russo Radio kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Why are you not with the team?
Just Joe Smith's with the team right now.
Oh,
so,
yeah, that's great. But, I mean,
he wanted to go on this trip, so we let him. And then, yeah. But I'm actually missing 7 in a row. Then when he comes back and the Wild have, I think, a 4-game homestand in the first 3 games, I'm actually going to Edmonton, where he was the other day, for the women's rivalry series again. And so, yeah, then I come back and I think they play the Capitals. So I'll be covering that. So that's really the next time I see him is like middle of this month.
Wow. Have you had any success? We may try to get Guerin on again the next week or two. What are the odds I can get him going, saying that really it's pretty clear the difference in Wallstedt between this year and last year? Last year, you saddled him with that silly 3-goalie experiment. And now that you've clarified things,
but you know what?
He's a different goalie. I mean, can I get him going that way, or do you think he'll see me coming?
He actually might agree with you. So, look, I think there's something to that. I also think there's something to the fact that Iowa's just a bad hockey team. They've been bad for 3 years in a row, or actually off to another terrible start this year. So I think that's part of it too, is he's playing in front of NHL guys. But I do think that his mind is clear. You know, last year, look, even before last year started, I remember Joe Smith and I co-bylining a story that said, you know, we really didn't understand where the Wild were coming from with this, because they're one injury from this not being something they could at all do. It made no sense with their cap situation that they were ever going to be able to achieve a 3-goalie system. You know, you're essentially wasting a roster spot with a salary. It made no sense. And so then, 2 games into the season, he was sent down to the minors and we basically never saw him again. So I do think that he felt like I think his head was unclear last year, and he felt like they were playing mind games with him, or whatever the intention was. And I think he's come back here this year. A lot of things have changed. I mean, he came in tremendous shape. That's always been one of the things that he even admits has been, a knock on him. And obviously he's just, come in with this great mental, fresh attitude right now. And he's been just sensational.
I want to go back to, because you guys laid it out nicely in the piece the other day about the sort of what the thinking was on him before the draft, and that it was clear that there were for some teams at least, some alarm bells that sort of had them staying away from him. So as you recall from that time, I'm sure you explored a decent amount of that, and obviously, especially when the Wild said, no, we're going to move up to get him. So what did you make of? Was most of the criticism fair? Was it a little bit sort of polarizing, or what do you remember about that whole period in terms of evaluating him?
It's tough because it was one of those things where he didn't have a ton of viewings based on the pandemic. So really you were dealing with European scouts for every team that were doing everything via Zoom. So a lot of the North American scouts didn't get over there to watch him in the year leading up to his draft year. But he did have this rap on him that he fell way deep in the draft because there was just this perception out there that he was uncoachable and had a bad attitude and didn't take care of his fitness. And I talked to him about that the other day. I mean, in the story that Joe and I wrote yesterday, where we talked about the Oilers, they were one of those teams that seemed to, I don't want to say fall for it, but they were certainly a team that believed that stuff, because Wally told me point blank that he was told that the second that the Detroit Red Wings took Sebastian Cossa at number 15, who, by the way, is still not in the NHL, but he's having a great year in the AHL, that they were not drafting him by any stretch of the imagination. So I remember at the time, the Wild had 4 different attempts that they tried to move up in the draft to draft Wallstedt. They struck out the first 3 times, and they were convinced that the Oilers were going to take him at 20. And Bill Guerin basically said to Judd Brackett, I mean, should I call Ken Holland? And Judd's like, I guess, but it's going to go nowhere because they're going to take him. And he calls him and was able to swing the deal where they just flipped picks. They got the 22nd pick, and the Wild just gave him a 3rd round pick for their trouble. So, the Wild, clearly at this point, it's early in his career, seems to have gotten a diamond in the rough here. But he said that, look, I was 17, 18 years old. And, I think that people just took my confidence as cocky either way, you're 17 or 18, you grow. And we've seen him grow, both mentally and physically in the last couple of years. So that's the danger in this sport. I mean, we hear it all the time of players that fall and fall and fall
Sure.
based on, an opinion that's generated at 17 or 18 years old when these guys are not really men yet. And guys can mature and clearly he feels like he has, but he admits that there was this rap on him that did cause him to fall to number 20 when a lot of people going into his draft year thought that he'd be a top 10 pick. And look, it's very rare that goalies, a lot of teams don't like drafting goalies in the first round. I'm not sure Ken Holland ever has in his career. And I think that, that's probably also weighs into it is that, it's such a crapshoot position that teams don't want to waste an early pick on him.
That is interesting because I know, and it's easy for me to say because I'm evaluating on the basis of what we're now seeing as opposed to when you have to project. But the position seems so important to me that I would never hesitate if I really loved the goalie, if I really was convinced the guy was big to use my first round pick. It's counterintuitive to me, even though, as you say, some of it is, well, they're harder to evaluate. So it's a little bit more of a risk than a forward, I guess, or a defenseman. I don't know. But I mean, we see the impact it has historically, let alone in the Wild, in this recent run. For me to say, if I love him and I'm convinced I love him, I got no problem taking a goalie in the first round.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the reason for this belief and the perception is that so many goalies that have been, drafted in the NHL that turn out to be incredible goalies are taken, mid rounds or even undrafted. I mean, Henrik Lundqvist is the first name that pops in my mind. I mean, here's a 7th round pick and he turns out to be a Hall of Famer. And I think that, obviously there are the Carey Prices of the world, but I think that's the reason why is that it's just such a hard position to predict at such a young age. There were 20 people there were 19 teams that essentially missed out on Wallstedt. But I agree with you. I do think that there's just this, there's this philosophy, and maybe it's dinosaurish, in the NHL that you just don't want to waste a pick on somebody like that when it's so much easier to recognize if a guy's a great skater or things like that. It's such a mental position, and it's hard to recognize at 18 years old how you're going to be able to mentally withstand the pressures of just being alone on an island every single night for 60 minutes. And, to get to what the Wild are doing now, this is why I love kind of this rotation that they've done now, tonight being the 12th game, where this is the 5th time now coming off a shutout. The goalie that got the shutout the night before is not starting the next game, but it's kept both these guys fresh. I mean, Gustafsson has been really, really good as well. Here, the team, as a whole, Wallstedt and Gustafsson have the best save percentage in the league since November 1st. And I think that in a season like this, where things are just so condensed and injuries are happening rampant around the NHL, this makes all the sense going into the Olympics, where Gus is also going to be in the Olympics, most likely, to just split these guys for right now, as long as they're both playing well and delivering them victories.
Can you give us an injury update on? I know you're not there, but I know you're on top of all the injuries. Who's in? Who's out? Who's close? Who's not?
Yeah, Yurov skated today. He's the only one of the injured guys that's on the trip. He's not going to play tonight, but the hope is that he can play in Vancouver. This is an odd trip where the Wild have 4 games, but they have an off day before each of the games, so it allows them to get practice time in and things like that. So that was good news that he was on the ice today. Marco Rossi, they had hoped would join at some point on the trip as long as he progressed back here in Minnesota. Right now, from what I saw with my own 2 eyes on Monday, I don't think he's close to returning. John Hines said today that he's not going to be joining the trip, and he was on the ice for like 2 minutes the other day and came off, and I talked to him briefly, and he said that it didn't go well. So I think that he's still going to be out a while. Foligno hasn't started skating yet. He got hurt there in Chicago in that game a week or so ago, or right before Thanksgiving, and same thing with Vinny Hinostroza. He got hurt that game, and he's also still in a walking boot. So So those are the injuries right now going into tonight's game, and we'll have to tell you tomorrow what the new injuries are because it seems like they lose one a game.
I get this text, and I understand it a little bit, right? And I want to get your reaction to it. This is a plea directly at you. Please, Russo, tell us how right now is not fool's gold. It feels like the past 5 years or so. Horrible October, improved November, almost the best record in December, then falling apart by March with poor player injury and barely make the playoffs and first round exit. And if he says it's different because of some guys' first 8 games and we can project greatness, I'll know we're in trouble. So what would you say to that? I think to a certain extent, understandable skepticism.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, I said this to somebody the other day. I've never covered a team where every single year they look like the best team in the league for like 2 or 3 months, and then they don't, and then they're not. And look, the one thing I do like about this year is that they are sustaining the injuries. I mean, the last couple years to that person's point, it's the second they've gotten devastated by injuries that they've fallen apart. And this year it's been anything but that. They have been just, ravaged by injury really the last month. And yet no matter who is out of the lineup, they seem to win. Now, the one thing they haven't sustained yet are an injury to either goaltender or an injury to Joel Eriksson-Ek or an injury to Kirill Kaprizov or an injury to Matt Boldy. The last couple years, those are the guys that would come out of the lineup where things would fall apart. So, I mean, most teams are like that. If you take Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar out of Colorado's lineup, you know what's going to happen. So you're seeing right now what's going on with Winnipeg by taking their goalie out of the lineup. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit there and say this is the real Wild. I mean, you know me too well for that, right? But right now, all I could say is that they are playing really, really good hockey. And this is what they hoped coming into this year, is that if they continue to give Bill Guerin a reason to maybe go out and make a move later in the season, that he would do it. And so now they're sort of back into that, where at the beginning of the season, you don't know where this thing was going. Now, all of a sudden, when he's talking trade, he's, I think, trying to talk to teams about potential substantive type moves. So we'll see what happens. The roster that's on the ice now doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be what the roster looks like on March 8th, the day after the trade deadline. But I really do like, obviously, what we're seeing now, and it starts with the goaltending.
Yeah, I think what's fair to say, trying to keep some measure of perspective, is that at the very least, they needed to turn around their bad start, right? I mean, if they're still wallowing in a similar position to where they started the season would be over. So
absolutely,
we don't know where it's going to head, but that's the alternative, and that's why I don't think there's any problem with sort of following this story and saying, well, no, this is a reversal that was instrumental and crucial as a start because it opens the door. Whether they go through it and whether they take full advantage of it, we don't know yet. But without it, we're done, right? You're talking about draft choices.
Yeah, and maybe a lottery pick, maybe a new coach, all that stuff. Look, I would have been the last person on Earth on October 30th to tell you to predict to you that they would be right now 12-1-2 in their last 15 games and on a 12-game point streak. I did not see this coming. But what I do love about what we're seeing now is that the guys that need to play great are playing great. Like Matt Zuccarello the team has not lost in regulation since Matt Zuccarello has been back in the lineup, which is crazy. They're 10-0-2 with him in the lineup. He's turned Kirill Kaprizov back into what we all expect, and that's a superstar. Matt Boldy has been as consistent a player as there has been all year, and he's just doing it. He's as good a playmaker as he is a goal scorer, and he's absolutely from protecting the puck standpoint to wall battles, everything about his game right now is elite. Eriksson-Ek is on a nightly basis shutting down other teams' top players. Faber and Brodin have been excellent. Middleton and Spurgeon are almost never on the ice for goals against anymore. So, and then as we mentioned, the goaltending. So this team right now is giving, I think I heard you talking about this yesterday, or maybe I heard comment. It was one of you two about the fact that, the cynics out there, and we all know that I could be very cynical, are just saying, well, wait till the playoffs. But look, the whole point of professional sports is to enjoy what you're seeing now. And right now, this team has been really entertaining to watch, and they're giving people a reason to watch, and they continue to win games on a nightly basis. So, nobody knows what tomorrow is going to bring. But right now, if you're a Wild fan, enjoy it until they give you reason not to.
Well, I think it's a conversation Louis and I definitely got into 2 days ago. I don't know if maybe there was a different one yesterday.
No, I think that is what I heard. Yep.
And that it's, again, both things can be true, where we all know ultimately how they're going to be measured and what it's going to take. But if you're invested in the team, you're watching now. And so to a certain extent, then you're going to react to sort of what you see to this point. Eventually it might get juicy regarding the goaltender, because as you know, once you get into the playoffs, it is easy to second guess, right? If you have a situation in which you feel like you've got number ones, there's still strategic decisions sometimes that have to be made in a best of 7 series, right? And that's where it might get interesting. So.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they'll rotate, right? If they go 82 games doing this and it's working, maybe they do it in the playoffs too. I don't think that's probably the right move to make. Look, I mean, Cam Talbot had a 12 or 13 game point streak, and they started Marc-Andre Fleury game 1 of the playoffs, and it obviously didn't go well. This team, in game 1, Philip Gustafson in the Dallas series fired a 50-game bullet, and they came back with a different goalie the next game, and that obviously backfired. So they don't always make the smartest decisions with their goaltending. But we'll have to see. I mean, that's still 55 games off.
Yep.
My guess, like if we were there right this second, I could see them starting with Gus, just based on the experience. But we'll see. I mean, a lot of things can change right now. Jesper Wallstedt has been as good as it gets in the National Hockey League. And if he has that, does this for another 50 games with, 25, 30 of them being starts, I mean, things could very well change.
Well, as you know, the football cliche is if you say you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. But that doesn't apply in hockey. If you have 2 goaltenders, you have 2 goaltenders. And so you ride it out and milk it at least through the length of a regular season, and then you got some decisions to make later for sure.
And the one thing I'll say about Wallstedt is this guy is so supremely confident that I would feel 100% confident if I were the Wild putting him in opening night, and it would be something different. Look, we're all looking, to the person that texted's point. I mean, I think we're all used to seeing eventual downfall of this team, and usually that comes in the first round of the playoffs. Well, if you want to change it up, and have finally something different, you might as well go with a different goaltender in there. Not that Gus was at all a problem last year in the Vegas series. He was sensational, I thought. But the reality is that would be one thing that's different. And this kid, there's something about him that's pretty special.
So what's the update on the scheduled cage match between you and Lanch guy, play-by-play guy? So for those who haven't followed that story, set that up for us and let us know how it has evolved.
Well, I haven't talked to him, but I don't think he's probably happy with me. It feels like every single week on the show, I'm in the middle of some sort of online controversy.
You're too hot-headed.
That's true.
I am. As I always say, I am my father's son. I am a New Yorker. I am Italian. There's a lot of things in my blood that cause me to just at some point just go erupt. And there was the other night, I got home from the game and I'm seeing all this Wild fans going nuts and I'm trying to figure out what it is. And I know the 2 play-by-play guys for the Colorado Avalanche are very passionate guys. And so I listened to the radio thing, and I love, every night after a Wild game, I listen to all the goal calls. I listen to it home and away because I just love listening to the callbacks, whether it's LaPanta and Joe O'Donnell or the road guys. And so I went and listened to the radio guy in Connor McGahey in Colorado, who's the Broncos PA guy. He's a great play-by-play guy, but he's passionate and he gets really enthusiastic. And he took a shot at Gus, saying that Wallstedt, that he was celebrating like he won the Stanley Cup, which he did not. And I just, here's a rookie that just stopped Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar back to back. He's going to have no reaction. Goal scorers are allowed to go crazy and jump in the glass after, if they score and make it 6-1. And a goaltender in the one moment after being in this pressure-filled island for 65 minutes, he can't just react. I just thought it was stupid. So I just pointed it out. And the next thing I know, as usual, I go to sleep and wake up next day. And it was the biggest controversy in the NHL. And unfortunately for him, everybody seemed to be on my side except for Avalanche fans. And so, and then, the John Butcher-Grasses in the world probably, joined in, and
yes.
It didn't help. It didn't help matters. So,
Russo, thanks for joining. We will chat next week. Have a great night.
Yep. See you, Dan. Take care.
Russo Radio helping us out. Breaking a little bit early because we're out early today, about 6 o'clock. Wild Flames tonight. Pregame show, because I guess Fallness doesn't want to work that hard, is scheduled to begin at 7:45. Opening face-off just past 8 o'clock as your Minnesota Wild try to continue their very hot ways as of late.
Minnesota, the state of hockey, hosts the World this winter. The 2026 IIHF World Juniors bring the best young talent from across the globe to our backyard. You can be part of the celebration. Get your tickets now at mnsportsandevents.org.
We had an hour-long conversation in studio with former U.S. Attorney Andy Luger, and we've gotten a lot of reaction to the A-section material we covered, and we covered a lot of ground, I think, today. But early we talked toy department. He's a confirmed Vikings fan, Rube, and I'm curious to get reaction on that part of our conversation from the audience, from Vikings fans. Because in effect, what he's saying is, not only do I want to see J.J. McCarthy the rest of the season, I want to see Air McCarthy the rest of the season, even if it's at the expense of a rational approach to play calling. Because he believes there's nothing at stake now at 4-8. You're not going to make the postseason. And it should be testing his passing mettle, as in METTLE. Do you agree with that? Is that the way to go? I don't think he wants to see your guy Brosmer anymore. That was clear.
Man, he called him the other guy.
The other guy. Yeah, vicious.
That's fine.
Demeaned your loyalty, wanting to know if it was a bit. And I said, well, I think it's 80% true, but in radio what happens is if something catches, then you kind of become captive to it. And so therefore, it becomes 100%.
Oh, you had to defend my honor. I didn't realize this.
Well, I did more generally, but I do think maybe I have the wrong percentage. Maybe you would say it is 100%. I said 80 to 85, but then when people get into it, then it's like, yeah, well, now I got to stick with it. I got to go with it until he throws a Garo Yepremian-like pass. It's funny that he and I both had the same.
I'm going straight to Google
reference.
On that one.
Yeah, that's ancient for sure, showing how old we are. But I'm very curious to know whether you agree with his view on that. No other quarterback worth seeing. Because I said my concern about making it Air Mac is you run the risk of further traumatizing the kid. Despite his reputation as 9 and the guy who, bring it on, whatever you got. I just put an extra coat of eye black on, I'll be fine. I don't think you want him traumatized by the end of the year. And I fear that if you go to you go to too much Air McCarthy, Air Mac, that's what might happen. Now, on the other hand, you might as well test him in that area. One would hope, being a little bit simpler, as we talked about earlier in the show. We've gone in just 2 or 3 weeks from, KOC talking about every fundamental flaw in his form
and his posture
to just start throwing it, man. Stop worrying about that nonsense. You're not a statue. Just throw it. So we've gone from one extreme to the other, but you do need to find out, and that means you don't want him to throw the ball 9 times a game. So there's no one else, I don't think, to look at the rest of this season. Honestly, I really don't, with all due respect to the other guy. Because I think you have to find out as much as one can. And let's face it, it's a way to tank responsibly. Tanking responsibly means you might deep down know that you're enhancing your draft position with the approach you're taking, but you can't really be ripped or taken to task for your approach because you're trying to give your young quarterback the experience that guys like Drake May and Caleb Williams got a year ago.
Exactly.
Right? So,
as our great friend Flip Saunders would say, we're not tanking, we're developing. We're not tanking, we're developing.
Is true. That's
now,
exactly what he
who
said.
they were developing, I'm not exactly sure because they were tanking and then they got Karl Anthony Towns, which worked out pretty well. I'm not sure who they were developing in 2014 around there, but that's how you got to go about it, right?
Pretty much.
We're not tanking.
So do you...
I'm with Luger.
Yeah.
There's 5 games left. That's the other thing. We're not talking about a slog
It's a month.
We're talking about the month of December, and you've got 3 home games. You got some good opponents coming up, obviously, with Dallas and Detroit and Green Bay.
Well,
you got, and I'm not saying they should just, like, I'm like Luger light.
Yeah.
I'm 80% of the way there. You got to just let him play and let him get out there and not worry about the base, body, ball, posture, Bahamas, feet and eyes. I mean, we've heard so many phrases this year. It's like, and I'm a sideline reporter for PJ Fleck, and I feel like there's been too many phrases in this year, right? Like, I'm all about the phrases and all the things, but I feel like we've had so many.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for him to have some games that really don't have any stakes now and just go out and just get yourself comfortable.
Well, here's the other thing. In all honesty, if he's weak, if his constitution is so weak that he could be traumatized, that in itself tells you something.
You got to find that out, too.
So you got to find that out a little bit, the old, throw into the deep end. But again, I'd say don't throw him into the deep end immediately. Throw him into you don't have to put him in the shallow end, but somewhere in between. And let him get something going, and then, as we said earlier, you can kind of build on it. I think all those things would make some sense. We'll come back with some texts on the question I just asked. We may also get back to a very nice performance and victory for the Golden Gopher men's basketball team. The first game of the Nico Medved, Big Ten game of the Nico Medved era of Golden Gopher men's basketball went surprisingly well inside the barn. We might review a little bit of that as well when we return.
Presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Dan writes, 801 guy, you know exactly how the rest of the season plays out. KOC is paid to do one thing, win. He has a coach's record that matters to him. They will not experiment like we're talking about. They will game plan to win each game. Now that it doesn't matter, we'll probably win more than we think, miss the playoffs, put ourselves right in the middle of the draft. I actually don't have a problem. I don't get as offended by that as other people, as long as you're closer to getting the McCarthy question answered. And if you do that and win a couple games you didn't expect, that's fine. But winning the game, I don't think can come at the expense, and probably won't come at the expense of finding out about McCarthy, because he's the guy who's going to play. So presumably, you're going to get a little better read on whether he's starting to figure some stuff out, or they're adjusting some things in terms of what they expect of him, or what they ask him to do, etc. Agree with Luger and Carter and JG. Develop, have offensive line do their job, support the kid. Who's Carter?
Chris, probably. We had him on, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, but I don't know how. I'm not sure I remember what he got into in that regard. Anyway, do their job, support the kid. Less talking, psych evaluation, more action playing / playing instead. That's what we're saying. I don't think Chris Carter was saying it that much. Like O'Connell a lot. Respectfully, though, perhaps he could tweak his post-game press conference style to being in between KOC and Zimmer. 612 Vikes Gal since the 70s. You also may have to evaluate how sending McCarthy out there to wing it the rest of the season affects your roster in future years. Are they ready to trade Jefferson if things go poorly? Possibly they are, and they're looking at a full rebuild. But you can't look at the kid in isolation. No, you can't. It's all part of the same amoeba for sure. I agree 100%. Let him air it out. Let's see what he has. Treat it like preseason tryouts. See if we need to go in another direction. Seek out a starter, or at least somebody to compete for the job this season. I'm really anti-McCarthy at this point, but he deserves a shot to see if he has potential. Let's be real. KOC doesn't have a game plan that includes anything but Air Mac. Yeah, there's something to that. Now, he thinks last week, I made the ultimate sacrifice. I called a bunch of running plays until we got to 4th and 1. And then I had the boot perfectly called. If we'd had the blocking executed properly, would have been an easy touchdown. We might have scored 14 points on that play.
Think about it.
Had so many people open.
Greg Olson would have loved it.
No, that's true. You said, this Larry Mondella guy, you said that showcasing McCarthy's passing would be tanking responsibly, but wouldn't 9 throwing the ball 40 times again be the equivalent of Mark Madsen shooting a dozen 3-pointers? Well, if it is, we're in trouble. But I guess that's very
honestly,
possible.
Mad Dog has been closer to some of these
passes. Is he coaching now, by the way?
He's at Cal. Yeah, he's been coaching for a while.
Assistant coach or head?
No, he's a head coach.
Head coach at Cal?
I think it's Cal, yeah.
Is that
the Stanford
right?
grad. He was at Cal at one point. I don't know if he's still there. Yeah, he was in the Lakers organization for a while. He had a team in Utah for a while. And I'm pretty sure he's at Cal now. Mad Dog.
I think Tim Brewster might be on his staff. Well, no, that'd be a different sport. But with Tim, you never know. You could see him going anywhere, couldn't you?
If you're a coach, you can coach.
That's for sure. Also, want to remind you, you're hearing the music early, or the rap, I guess I should say, early, and you'll hear the Spinners music early as well, because we've got Vikings. This is Thursday, so is this Vikings Uncensored?
It's the Vikings podcast and then the Vikings tailgate.
And then it's Wild Flames pregame show scheduled to start at 7:45. Opening faceoff just past 8. Timberwolves rematch in Nolens against the Pelicans can be heard on the Timberwolves channel. Is that correct?
Of your iHeartRadio app.
Yes.
You should make it a preset.
Mike Conley joined us yesterday. If you'd like to go back and podcast that discussion. We did talk a little bit of pro hoops today as well, with the news regarding Chris Paul being unceremoniously dumped by the Clippers. Also want to thank an outstanding array of guests today. Sean Salisbury has never been better than he was between 3:30 and 4. Wait.
Had no technical issues.
That's very true. He ran into a travel snafu, so we are hoping to get bonus Salisbury tomorrow. Russo Radio at 5 and a good hour with Andy Luger in studio, bringing, he said, the whole family. I think he's got 5 going to Vikings, Washington. He is still bullish on the club. Grew up as a bit of a Giants fan, but once he got here, he has never, ever looked back. Tomorrow will be Friday Football Beast Day. So in addition to the bonus Salisbury picks with Kirby, Gessling, and Lavelle, Golden Gopher men's basketball team, first Big Ten game of the season. They hosted favored and undefeated Indiana. Indiana's got a new coach too, don't they?
Darren DeVries,
and
the guy who replaced Nico at Drake.
Oh, that's right.
All
that's
those years ago, yeah.
So Nico Medved down to 7 players, and I felt it was one of those games. What I did hear of it was early. There were a couple times where I thought the game was on the verge of getting a little bit out of hand for Indiana, taking control of it, but they never could. And then your club hit a couple of late threes at the end of the first half to make it. Was it tied at the half?
33-33.
Yeah. So at that point, you're going, well, we're here now. What the hell? Let's go win the game, which they ultimately did, and they actually built the lead. Right?
They led by 10 with the last couple minutes.
That's correct. And a lot of it was a testament to, I think, good effort on the boards. Indiana is not a good rebounding team. Minnesota took full advantage of exactly that, even with their own injury issues. Had a huge advantage on the boards, I think by 15. They doubled up the Hoosiers on offensive rebounds. I don't know if that's sustainable, but it came off as the sort of game where you do, I think, get the feeling that you have a coach who knows how to coach, who's not, as I mentioned earlier, going to have to learn on the job to become a head coach. That's the advantage of having Niko Medved, even if when he came here, I don't know that there was massive fanfare. It's not like he's a huge, huge name, but he'd already established his coaching bona fides as a head coach. He'd been through that, and these are the kinds of games that in this market, you got to start at least trying to get your share of them, because otherwise it becomes too easy to go back to, well, same old Gophers, and really nothing has changed. And I'm not saying this opens the door to, winning 10 in a row in the Big Ten, because they have roster limitations, injuries in it as well. And as you pointed out earlier, the other thing is he runs a really good offense, and they reliably use that offense to get good shots where it didn't look like the last 3 or 4 minutes they were scrambling, right? Where it was like, okay, we're just going to hope something opens up offensively. His offense runs well, and
it's fun.
The guy can coach. So the issue will be garnering talent and keeping talent from this point forward. I hope this isn't, by the way, a sign that now that Indiana basketball is no longer undefeated, that Indiana football will
what if we started the whole week?
You might have. Their undefeated stretch ends against the favored by, I think, last I checked, 5.5 points, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Your guy, Don Fisher, has quite a day on Saturday. He's doing the basketball game in Bloomington and then driving up to Indy to do the Big Ten championship.
He is one of those ageless wonders. Guys, if you found a photo of Don Fisher when I was at IU.
Yeah.
And he was already broadcasting. And then compared it to a photo of Don Fisher like earlier this week, you'd go, he's one of those people who's literally not aged. It's unbelievable.
I've met him only one time at Big Ten Media Days in Indy. Where else? He came over to talk to Grimm. And after he left, I said, who was that? And he said, that was Don Fisher. And I go, that's impossible. There's no possible way that was Don Fisher. The guy looked like he's 46 years old. He looks like he could be one of my guys. And he's been doing it for 52 years, I think, something like that.
It's over 50.
I said, how is that Don Fisher? Grimm's like, hey, I know. He's incredible. He was talking about golfing and doing all this stuff.
And he's good. He is really good.
Oh, yeah.
He does a really nice job.
He's enjoying himself. The football thing.
Should.
Yeah,
how can
my
you
sources
not?
say. Yeah.
Texter guy, this encapsulates, it kind of captures it nicely. I listened to the Gopher game on the Fan, and it's a miracle the Gophers won despite the refs being clearly against them. I don't know how you would have gotten that impression listening to Grimmer.
There were some questionable calls.
You think there were? Of course there were. You always think that.
Moving screens,
a
couple of things.
Yeah.
Wait till you hear me against Maryland on Sunday for the women. I'm going to go Grimm times 10. They draw a lot of fouls. Brenda Freeze's Terrapins. So I'm just warning you.
Yeah.
Depending on how cranky I am.
Are they still highly ranked?
Oh, yeah.
Their usual
they're
spot
top
for
10.
them?
They're undefeated. Yeah, they're coming to the barn. 3 o'clock on Sunday.
I still owe her a pair of hose. Remember when I?
Oh yeah.
Remember when I? Was she had to like climb over us. This was before you, right?
Oh yeah,
it had to have been.
This was like she was only here in 02.
To do an interview up high at the barn, and she ended up getting a run in her hose, right? So we owe her that, I guess. Good coach.
She'll be here Sunday if you want to.
Damn good
follow
coach.
up. Absolutely,
excellent coach. Very good program. Is this winnable?
Yeah.
Oh, this is what you got. These are some of the games you got to start winning.
This is a huge game. Yeah.
Can we score enough?
Only
That's
time will tell, Davey.
Issue,
shooting has been a problem. Defense, not so much.
Yeah.
They're guarding everybody. So,
but outside shooting or just scoring?
No, actually, inside scoring.
Inside scoring.
Scoring at the rim, as they say.
And that will be on the iHeartRadio app as well, correct?
It will. 96.7.
96.7. You don't even know that. If you just look for KFAN the Plus,
you got it.
Then you can. What time's kickoff?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Exactly. So right after the Vikings.
Okay, it's a good gig if you can get it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect thing.
I'm excited for Sunday.
How many years has it been since the Indiana basketball team lost their first game before the football team?
Probably never.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's not a bad point. Yeah, it's got to be fairly rare, I would say, at this point. We appreciate you listening. Full of, I think, 3.5 hour show tomorrow. At least. So it's a 6, maybe 6:30. We'll find out. As I mentioned, Minnesota Wild on the Fan tonight. That pregame show will begin at 7:45. Opening face-off just past 8 o'clock. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and we will talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the great time. We love you, Dan.
The job is done. We can go home now.
Well, go Twins. Thank you for the airtime, and I'll talk to you soon.